Welcome to the, what's today? It's September 8th meeting of the Stockbridge Selectboard. We're going to start off with just taking actions on meeting minutes for July 14th and 28th. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion related to the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Already just smooth meeting here. Let's see. Take action on a one-day alcohol license for Berkshire Botanical Garden for the Harvest Festival, October 8th and 9th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
I'll make a motion, we
I'll second
grant
it.
the license.
And any discussion on the Berkshire Botanical Garden Harvest Festival? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Take action on one-day alcohol license for Chesterwood for a wedding on September 17th from 4 to 11 p.m.
I'll make a motion, we grant the license.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
3 for 3. All right. Take action on a one-day alcohol license for Joseph Miller for the Josh Billings on September 18th from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m.
I'll make a motion, we grant the license.
I second it.
And I'll just point out that's at Mackinac.
Yep.
Camp Mackinac, correct?
Yes.
Any comments or questions or anything about the alcohol license for Josh Billings? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was a good
Aye.
meeting.
So far.
We done?
Yeah, almost. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to just move. So we have a consultant here, talk about the charge stations. Is Pat here?
Wait, we skipped one.
Well,
Senior center.
No, we're moving the charging stations up because it involves a consultant. Is Pat here, Laura?
you're muted.
Yes, I'm here, and I don't know if Patrick Mahoney's on yet, but
Why don't you just text him or call him and we'll just do the next thing first and then we'll do you next.
okay. I don't know if I can, I don't have either of those abilities, but I can try to find him.
We can do it now if you prefer. It's up to you.
I think we can just do it now. If he comes on, we'll do it. I think Michael can probably
All right.
answer questions, or if you have any questions that are technical, then we'll deal with that.
All right, so what we're discussing here is adding capacity for up to 10 charge stations at Town Hall in the parking in the back and beginning with 4 charge stations. We got a grant for $50,000 and we're looking to build out with a small start, but with room to expand. Was that correct, Laura?
Yep, I think you just summarized it all.
Find out how that works.
I think that what I presented to the select board, I think a few weeks ago, the committee was talking about it. Oh, who put this on there?
I did, Laura.
Oh, very good. Okay. Well, anyway, we used Guardian Energy, who's one of the state-approved contractors or consultants, to come out and meet with whoever could meet from the green communities. And we did a site visit at the town offices. And we talked about some of our questions. I think I mentioned all of those at our last meeting with the select board. And what we were really waiting for was a proposal from them on what they recommended. The biggest issue for us was whether we should just go for whatever could be included in the grant right now, or whether we should essentially future-proof. Oh, Patrick Money says he can't hear. I don't know what that's about, but anyway, whether we should
It might be a me issue, though.
Whether we should future-proof the installation, in other words, have room for expansion, because at present we wouldn't be able to, without some infrastructure investment, there would be a very limited amount of charging stations that we could install. And I think it was the feeling both of the committee and also some of the residents, or at least a few residents who commented over the period that I've talked to them. And then one person from my client was at the meeting who knew quite a bit.
Patrick?
And the direction of things is that.
Or hold on, one sec.
We have a couple of people saying that they can't hear.
They can't hear me?
Three people have said no sound.
She's working. That's
But I know we can hear you, Laura. You can hear us.
Can somebody put, whoever can't hear,
Oh, here's someone else. They can hear the sound.
hi, Peter. Who can the three people who cannot hear the sound, put something in chat, please? Nobody else? If we can hear, we're happy to know it, but we just need to know who can't hear. Anybody? Do you want me to keep talking to make sure? Because I love to talk. That was a joke. Nobody laughed. It's kind of worrisome. I can hear you. Hi, Liz.
Most people are saying that they can hear, including CTSB. So if there's anybody that can't hear, you might want to log out and then log back into the meeting.
Try one of the dial-in numbers
Yeah,
if you do it with your phone.
because overall, it seems like our audio is working.
And Laura, is Pat now on?
I can hear now. Yeah, I was
Hi, Pat.
logging out.
It's our consultant on the charge stations. Don't you love Zoom?
Yeah.
All right,
great.
I think we're all set.
All right. Keep going, Laura.
So what I was going to say is that our committee, the biggest question was what's our crystal ball on how many charging stations we're in need and by when. And I think the sense was that we don't really know, but the sense was that this is going to be increasing. There are going to be an increasing number of electric vehicles sooner rather than later. I did talk to Chris at the Norman Rockwell Museum. They have 6 charging stations. And I think he's occasionally seen, or maybe once, seen them all being used. But he's only gotten positive feedback about it. And they feel and people are really, really happy to have them there. So, and I think the Red Lion Inn also has a couple. And that the sense of the committee, the sense of the committee really, and the Regional Planning Commission, who is also looking at parking in town, was that to have EV charging stations could only be positive for the town, especially as we look to where visitors can park and making use of the town offices parking capabilities, especially on weekends, and having people come to Stockbridge and even having people charge their vehicles and then maybe stay a little longer so their vehicles can charge for a few more minutes. So I think those are the essential pieces of having a few more, having the capacity to go a little bit further, that we really wanted to have that. What that means is that there would be, that there is some infrastructure investment, about 50, 60, 70, 80, about almost $40,000 that we would need to invest. But the question is if we don't do it, and Mike can address this better, if we don't do it and we wanted to expand at a later date, whether that's 2 years or 5 years, we're going to be in the same boat. And we don't know if there will be any grants at that point. So that, as opposed to holding out for something better or down the road, that I think isn't our sense of the committee, and that we should kind of go for it now. And that down the road, the only things that can happen is we don't know about the grants, and the time and the expense. The time for the town is going to be just as great, and the expense will be the same, if not more. It's doubtful that it's going to get lower. So it seemed like a good thing. We wanted so that with this we would have 4 installed at the moment. It could increase. We'd have 10 parking spaces right there on the side closest to the town offices on the police department side. It could be, we could add more parking spaces across on the basketball court. There's the ability to what's called power share. So even with 10 spaces, you could essentially, or if you added more than that on the other side, you could essentially sort of split the power and have you do more charging stations with what we've updated now. So it's actually probably greater than 10 expansion possibility.
Just to clarify, we're not planning on expanding into where the park is. Isn't there some specific?
No, we're not looking to expanded the
Okay.
park. So the clear part is that we're putting in the infrastructure within the building, transformers and the rest, that we can accommodate up to 10. But we're gonna put in 4 right away. We felt as though if we went with 4 and only built out inside up to 4, then when we go to expand to 10, everything inside's gotta get ripped out. It's sort of putting in a circuit breakers in your home, a breaker panel. If you need 6, only putting up a 6 panel, well, then when you need to go to 12, you gotta rip it out and put a 12 in. So this would be a lot smarter way to go. And Patrick, please, our consultant, please jump in if anything here I'm saying is incorrect. But this would allow us to do it. I was gonna recommend to the board that we use ARPA funds, because once again, we talked about using ARPA funds to try to leverage other funds. This is getting a $50,000 grant, an $88,000 project for the town for $38,000.
But
Well,
this
20.
is sort of a reverse leverage. We already got the 50. We're not going to get any more from the 38.
We need 20.
Well, without, with the 50, to do this right, we think that this would be the best way to go.
Yeah, I think I'd rather do, I wish we were talking about this. I think I'm leaning more toward doing reserve funds for this. I just feel like we've already gotten the $50,000 grant. We're trying to use the ARPA money to get future grants. And
Yeah, but you could do the same thing with the reserve account. It doesn't matter to me. Then we can go either whatever direction the select board would rather approach. The select board has the authority to just do the ARPA itself, or you could do a reserve account transfer to cover this type of project and with the finance committee, but they would have to do that at a meeting.
we have much of it here. Do any of you guys have a preference?
Wait, I have a
Specifically
question.
the finance committee.
Separate meeting.
I have a,
Yeah.
I
how,
mean, we're going to make a recommendation now. I'm just listening to it. If you have a thought, you can share
We
it.
have limitations on your ARPA money, correct?
We have to use it by, appropriated by December 30th, 2023.
and how
And
much,
pretty much we can use it any way we want because we declared it as lost revenue.
and how much do we have left in that fund?
179,000, and that's what we have physically at hand, and we have another disbursement coming of about another 100, I think it's 174,000, so.
Okay.
Of what?
Will the, wait, I had one more.
I just want to know, clarify what you're talking about with the 179.
There's a difference between the money we've received to date, which is 284,000 in ARPA.
Oh, okay. We're talking about-
170 something thousand coming. And then we'll have all of our ARPA funds in, but our balance right now is 179,000. That's available to the selectmen to appropriate because it's basically being treated like a grant because we declared it as lost revenue.
And will the 4 spots cost the $89,000, or will it, do you foresee it costing more?
No, the 89,000 will cover the cost of 4 active spots.
Okay.
The
And-
infrastructure to cover 10.
Right.
Patrick from Guardian, if you could just clarify.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
with that, we're installing a dedicated transformer to step down from the main panel, which, there's a lot of electrical in the town hall. We'd be punching out from that electrical room, putting in some handholds, and then installing 2 dual ports. With that transformer, you could get 10 plus stations at that location. So that also includes software for these stations as well. So that's a turnkey, all-inclusive cost there.
Is there any ongoing costs for this?
So I believe, and I think if you scroll down, Laura, it does say how long the software agreement is. So you would need to renew the software. This is an open protocol, so you're not locked in with any software vendor. For the sake of ease, we use the manufacturer's own software, but there are other software companies that you could use to basically create a dashboard and manage the way that you're charging the end user. It would also let you know if something's happening at that station, if it's not getting power, anything like that.
So it looks like it's about $1,000,
So if you scroll,
$945.
No, I
So
think
that's-
that was
maintenance.
Jamie.
that's a
Oh,
preventative maintenance, which is up to the town to decide if you guys want to do that.
There's also the ability to build into the electric rate we charge, both
Yes.
the cost of electricity and a maintenance fee. So there is a revenue stream that covers at least some of these costs on the maintenance ongoing basis.
And that's what a lot of the towns I work with do. They charge, a little bit of a premium on top of their cost of electricity and create kind of a slush fund.
We're not going to call it that.
What's that?
Yeah.
We're not going to call it that, but yes, we understand.
Okay.
I mean, the pricing, we'll get some guidance on pricing. The idea is that you can price it a little bit more than just the electric cost, so that you are building up some reserves to cover any unanticipated maintenance costs or the software cost. We can decide, I'll leave it to Mike and others to look at, do you want to buy it again, an extended warranty, which is $200 a year, or do you want to have some preventive maintenance every year? And these can be, or train the DPW to do that. I mean, there are a few things that were really not our committee's decision. Our recommendation is really to look at the future proofing with the 4 spaces right away, and then the 10 spaces altogether, and the expansion capabilities and the turnkey operation, and making it and the signage to direct people there, and having it be very compatible with Stockbridge as a tourist destination, and still making the pricing competitive with other towns. We don't have to be the cheapest in town in Massachusetts either.
So we'll do our own analysis on pricing and on how to get the most value out of maintenance in terms of our options. I don't think we need to decide that at this meeting.
No.
I think we need to just look at, is this something that we want to go forward with?
I would make the motion to move forward with it using the ARPA money.
I'll second it.
I'd actually rather have a conversation around how we fund it. We're going to be looking at potentially ARPA with the Pinewoods Path project later. And we've had a strategy in town to try to, put more ARPA forth to get us to a point where we can actually apply for new and additional grants. In this case, I just feel like we aren't really doing that. We've already got the $50,000 grant. It doesn't matter whether we use ARPA for this or not. And I think we should look at opportunities to preserve ARPA for what the overall ARPA strategy is.
They're both reserves available to the selectmen. The other one takes also concurrence with the finance committee. So either way, you have funding in either one.
I think there's a question.
I'm sorry.
But wait, I think we have to have it on the floor to have a discussion. So we have to have the second motion.
What? Didn't you just second it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but did
now
we
you're
all
in
agree?
discussion.
Okay,
Now we're in the discussion, yeah. I mean, is there something wrong?
no,
Nope, we're good.
go ahead, John.
John, yeah? You want to come up and introduce yourself so people can hear you on the speaker? This speaker works here, but yeah.
All right.
It'll pick
Have a seat.
We'll pick it up from there.
My name is John Hart. I live on Rattlesnake Mountain. And my question is to Laura and anyone else who's a lot more aware of what's going on than I. Is this going to be like, big screen TVs where the first ones that came off the market were like, $5,000, and all of a sudden you can walk into Costco today and you can buy them for $850. I guess my question is, what is the cost per unit in terms of, you've got 4, and that's a great idea. You got the infrastructure for 10, but right now, what's the cost for the 4 per unit?
I don't know that. Patrick Mahoney, can you respond to that?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to create like a breakdown of the material costs for the EV charging station versus for the civil work, the transformers, and the labor.
Well, I think this is going to be something that's going to come forward sooner or later, just by virtue of the fact that, whatever the unit cost is now, I mean, we can all do division. But, as the unit costs come down, people might want to be aware of that.
Yeah, but John, one of the reasons we, at least from my perspective, we're not going with the full 10 initially isn't just cost. There was an article in the paper, I don't know if anybody saw it a few weeks ago, where there's some R&D technology that's out there that they believe they can roll out in the next 3 to 5 years, which charges a car in 10 to 20 minutes. And so, we want to basically get started with 4 units, but, electricity is electricity. We're going to have the capacity to bring it from the building out to the parking spaces. And, my sense is that we maybe, like, I think the point you're making, don't want to be in a big hurry to do 100 with the old technology and, and then, have all of a sudden something that takes 20 minutes instead of 4 hours, come out in a handful of years. So I think it's a good place to start. It's a nice balance.
I would tend to agree with that. I think that a big chunk of this is for the infrastructure, which we need to do anyway if we're going to build out more than a few spots. I think North Adams just put in 4 spots. Lenox has 2, which they did way back many years ago. So again, there's no crystal ball, but I'd say the bigger cost is, Patrick can correct me, is the infrastructure piece.
That's correct.
So I think we have the motion. I think the only thing now is how we pay for it. Did Jay or Bill or Steve, do you have any comments you want to make on reserve fund versus ARPA?
No, I don't think it's appropriate for us to be making any comments because we're not having a meeting.
Right.
There was a motion made and seconded to
Do the
move
ARPA.
ahead with the ARPA funds.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, well, I'm almost done.
Good luck moving forward on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Select Board.
All right, the next one on the agenda is the senior center reopening.
Just so the senior center, I'd like to thank, there's been a working group, which is now the board, which.
Second. By the way, thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Laura, if you're still here. All right.
That's been working very hard to get the senior center back open after 2 years of, not running due to COVID mostly. So we are proposing to have I sent the names to you and
I have one right here. I just wanted to thank Chris McCarthy, who's the chair, Ron Muir, Nancy O'Brien, Diane Sheridan, and Jack Gremley for their hard work reestablishing this.
So I was going to throw up sorry. Oh, there it is. And I just need to share, sorry. I don't know why my computer feels a little slow. So we're having a grand reopening of the senior center. I also wanted to thank Teresa Zanetti. She's done a lot of work getting the programming set up, working with those members of the committee. And Andrea from Heaton Court has been instrumental in getting involved, and we've really been trying to tie the two together. The board will be regularly meeting with the Council on Aging. We'll be doing our hybrid meetings like all the rest as we get everything back up and running this September. But Wednesday, September 21st, from 11 to 2, we have our reopening luncheon. So I'm going to be there. We're going to be talking about programmings and services and just talking about the town as an open discussion. We have one of our board members, Jack Gremley, who will be music and RSVP us by September 12th. If you wish to come, we can also coordinate transportation options with the council.
What are you serving for lunch?
We have lunch being provided by Mezzio's Restaurante. We have options, so it's going to be a nice event. And one of the plans is that we are going to be trying to set up a monthly luncheon where we're going to have different speakers come in. The police department's already come forward for October to come in and speak to seniors about scams and things that they should be aware of. And then we want to have the assessors in November. Have Mike come in and speak to the seniors about assessing and the abatements and things like that.
As an aside, the regional school district has been presenting at senior centers in some of the other 7 towns, and they would like to get on your schedule too.
Good, we can get them involved. So.
Oh, hi, Mary.
Hey, at what age are seniors?
I believe
Just curious.
40 and up.
You gotta be 95. You're considered a senior.
I was double checking. I believe it's 60 and up.
By the way, if you're not 95, it's $20, just so you know. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah.
I believe it's 60.
I believe it's 60 and above for the Council on Aging Services.
Sucks. You and me hit it this year. I know.
Yeah.
All right.
So it should be a fun event. We hope people will join us, and programming is getting started. I will throw up some of the activities that we have started right here. So let me stop sharing that. And these are a list of the service activities. So right now on Mondays, we have yoga with Crystal. She's our teacher. We have chair yoga on Mondays up at Heaton Court at 10 a.m. We're going to have a blood pressure clinic every first Tuesday up at Heaton Court. And this is not only available to people at Heaton Court, but any member of the community. Bingo is going to be starting up. It'll run September through June on Tuesdays. We have a brown bag every second Wednesday at Heaton Court. We have gentle yoga every second and fourth Wednesday at 11 in the senior center. We have the Meals on Wheels Thursday at 11:30 at Heaton Court, with a sing-along with Jack again. So you can, if you want to sing, come and join. We have another yoga class on Thursdays. We have also Shine Consulting and foot clinics by appointments. So a number of things that are happening. We pretty much have most of the programs that were before COVID up and running, and then kind of monthly lunching and the rest. And then we just hope to build on it.
And just as a point, 4 or 5 people this summer asked me if we could add pickleball to the tennis courts, all seniors, which is why I bring it up. I believe that the current painting of the paving and painting of the 4 tennis courts includes painting the lines for pickleball. So I'm happy to announce that the select board had nothing to do with it. This is all Parks and Recreation, that we're adding pickleball for those of you who like tennis but don't like the long distance running involved in it. So anyways, maybe we could do a pickleball tournament next year. Who knows? Anything else?
Oh, that's it on that.
September 21st. Chicken parm. All right, on to the next thing. Vote to award $4 million in bonds. The sale date ended September 6th. You want to just review what this was for and the rates that we got?
So just a review before Jamie's volunteered to read the 2 pages that we have to read legally into the record. So the results of the bond sale is, so this was just asked of me earlier and I didn't have it in front of me, but I have it right here. It was Fidelity Capital Markets, 3.64%. So I think I said
in aggregate.
3.64 is the total interest cost on the $4 million bond. And right now we have the vote to appropriate. It is long. It is a legal process that we have to do. So, Jamie?
Ready?
Yeah.
I, a member of the Board of Selectmen of the town of Stockbridge, Massachusetts, certify that at a meeting of the board held September 8th, 2022, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified and which a quorum was present, the following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the board in my custody. Voted that the sale of the $3,815,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2022 bonds of the town dated September 23rd, 2022, the bonds to Fidelity Capital Markets, a division of National Financial Services, LLC, at the price of $4,064,089.59 and accrued interest, if any, is hereby approved and confirmed. The bonds shall be payable on August 15th of the years and in the principal amounts and bear interest in the respective rates as follows. Here we go. Year 2023 amount $195,000 at the interest rate of 5%. Year 2024 amount $195,000, the interest rate 5%. Year 2025 amount $195,000 at 5% interest. Year 2026 at $190,000 at 5%. Year 2027, the amount is $190,000 at 5%. Year 2028 is $190,000 at 5%. Year 2029 is $190,000 at 5%. Year 2030, the amount is $190,000 at 5%. Year 2031, the amount is $190,000 at 5%. Year 2032 is the amount is $190,000 at 5%. Year 2033, the amount is $190,000 at 5%. Year 2034 at $190,000 at 5%. In 2035, the amount is $190,000 at 5%. And year 2039, the amount is $760,000 at 4%. And year 2042, the amount is $570,000 at 4%. Further voted that the bonds maturing on August 15th, 2039 and August 15th, 2042, each a term bond, shall be subject to mandatory redemption or mature as follows. Term bond due August 15th, 2039. Year 2036, the amount is $190,000. Year 2037, the amount is $190,000. Year 2038, the amount is $190,000. Year 2039 is $190,000. Term bond due August 15th, 2042. Year 2040, the amount $190,000. Year 2041, the amount $190,000. Year 2042, the amount $190,000. Further voted to approve the sale of a $145,000 at 3.6% general obligation bond anticipation note of the town to be issued through the State House Note Program dated September 23rd, 2022 and payable September 22nd, 2023 to East Hampton Savings Bank at par and accrued interest, if any. Further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the bonds, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated August 30th, 2022, and a final official statement dated September 8th, 2022, the official statement, each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that the bonds shall be subject to redemption at the option of the town upon such terms and conditions as are set forth in the official statement. Further voted that the town treasurer and the Board of Selectmen be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure undertaking in compliance with SEC Rule 15C 2-12 in such form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the bonds for the benefit of the holders of the bonds from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update such procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax exempt status of the bonds and comply with the relevant security laws. Further noted that any certificates or documents relating to the bonds, collectively the document, may be executed in several counterparts, each of which shall be regarded as an original, and all which shall constitute one and the same document. Delivery of the executed counterpart of a signature page to a document by electronic mail in a PDF file or any other electronic transmission shall be effective as delivery of a manually executed counterpart signature page to such document, and electronic signatures on any of the document shall be deemed original signatures for the purpose of the documents and all matters relating hereto to having the same legal effect as original signatures. Further voted that each member of the Board of Selectmen, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes. I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, date, time, and agenda for the meeting, which agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the office of the town clerk is located, or if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.03 2B at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays prior to the time of the meeting, and remained so posted at the time of the meeting, and that no deliberations or decision in connection with the sale of the bonds were taken in executive session, dated September 8th, 2022.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion and name Jamie the clerk as the documents, call the clerk to sign them. In all seriousness, I make a motion that you're the clerk, name the clerk. Wait a second.
Second.
All those in favor of
Aye.
naming Jamie the clerk? Aye, aye, aye. All right, so you're going to sign this.
And we need to vote to approve.
I understand. I'll just point out that, that just as a trend we should be aware of, that the interest rate we got on a competitive bid on these notes are roughly double the rate that was available last year. So I make a motion to approve the bonds. Or you need a specific wording of the motion?
As read.
As read.
As read.
Okay.
All, you have to say all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks for that. All right. So the next thing on the agenda is discussion to improve pedestrian connectivity between Pinewoods and Church Street. Is Nick Nadorf here?
Right here.
Hi, Nick. Oh, yeah. Hi, Nick. Hi. Do you want to come up and maybe, I don't know if Marty, you want to come up too, because we wanted to sort of, we've had these discussions kind of going on, and I heard Jim, is Jim on the Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Jim. And what about Mary? I don't know if Mary can make it. This is Nick Nadorf, and this is Marty Sennett. Let's pull over a chair. Should be here. So I don't know if y'all recall, but at town meeting this past year, Nick Nadorf right here and Jim Balfans gently reminded the town that a commitment of sorts have been made to try to improve the safety of travel between Pinewoods and Church Street. Michael, can you pull up that photo? Nick and Jim and I had a chance to meet about a month ago. And then separately, Marty, who's the president, Marty Sennett here, he's the president of the library board. Marty and Mary Burley and I met on the same topic. And what really moved me actually was not this like pretty picture of 102 during the summer. It was the snow ones are in there? Today. Oh, okay.
There's
all right.
snowbanks for
Michael's bringing up the snowbank.
Yeah.
It's a picture that we're about to show, which is this right here, which shows what a typical, and this doesn't even look like a terrible snowstorm. This just looks like, how it looks to get from Pinewoods to Church Street in the middle of the winter. We got elderly people, disabled people, children living here. And so there's a feeling amongst a number of people in town, including the four folks who have reached out both at town meeting and since that this is a project that we started to work on 5 or 10 years ago that never went anywhere. And I would like to suggest that we make this a high priority to have a plan that we take to town meeting. Now, in addition to this work, which Nick and Jim did, and which envisioned a connection that runs parallel to the street between Pinewoods and Church Street. Separately, the Laurel Hill Association had applied for a community preservation grant 3 or 4 years ago. And in that grant, they hired a world-renowned trail designer named Peter Jensen, who actually envisioned a project in 2 phases that would connect Route 183 over at the Laurel Hill property, which is kind of between the Rockwell Center and where it intersects 102, and take a trail in 2 phases that would basically go behind Pinewoods and then connect to Church Street via elevated walkway through the wetlands, similar to Parsons Marsh in Lenox. So we believe that and interestingly enough, as an aside, a high priority of the board of the Berkshire Natural Resources Council is to fund and participate in projects that are tied to like affordable housing communities. So they actually expressed some interest in the second project, as well as the interest in the frankly less expensive project, which would be parallel and just off the street on 102. So that's about as far as we got. You guys had some numbers. Maybe you want to talk about those a little bit. And then when we got together, we talked about a plan to perhaps also use some ARPA money to direct an engineering project to try to, sift through these various ideas, come up with a plan of what it would take to fund it so that we can start going out and applying for grants and bring that entire project to town meeting, hopefully this year, if not next year. So that is literally the universe of everything I know about this project, but the people have more expertise, like Nick and Michael.
Yeah, Patrick, let me just explain. The library's interest here came in because we're in the process of updating our strategic plan, and one of the things we look at is serving all elements in the community. And Mary Burley particularly brought up the fact that for any school-aged children in Pinewoods, accessing the library is very difficult. And so that's why we came on board and said if it's possible, this would be something that we would be interested in supporting.
That would be my son.
Right.
He would be one of those children.
Hey, how are you?
I want to first thank Patrick and Jim Balfance for finally giving some traction to something that should have been taken care of a long time ago. We did make a commitment for three things when they put in the affordable housing. It would be on a bus route. It would have access to the post office and walking distance to town. The walking distance part, it always got neglected. There is some engineering that I found. I have a very large folder that Michael downloaded, large. And that's where we were. Now, I've since met with Berkshire Regional Planning Commission to find out if there's funding like the complete streets we've done. There's some things in the wind. They're aware that we need to do this. They've showed me documents where people started and never really got any further. I've also met with the road people at Lennox Highway Department, and he gave me a long stretch that shows all the bounds of the road width and the different driveways and things that an engineer would have to study to understand it. From my point of view, I would love to invite some people, maybe a lot of people, to do a walk from possibly as far as the garden center, all the way up around the corner, and realize that this is a really dangerous highway. I took pictures today. Someone made me aware that that's a passing zone the whole way from the garden center or the Berkshire Botanical Gardens, all the way up to the entrance to where the compactor is. And so the speed limits I'll show here are 50 miles down to 40 once you get past the compactor. But if the speed limit is 50 and someone wants to pass, I'm guessing we're going to do 70 or 80, They sort of do that anyhow. I mean, I drive my truck back and forth there all the time, and it's really a dangerous corner. And thanks for showing, I went through photos because I don't think anybody would want to walk that.
Right. I will second that. I live on Church Street, 14 Church Street. I bike up and down 102, and it's daunting. I'm keenly aware of the volume and the pace of traffic on that road. And it's well over 50 miles an hour.
Come around the corner and you don't see the people that would be there. The other thought is, I was envisioning it being on the inside of the curve, but there's a snowplow issue, there's a maintenance issue, things like that. The person I talked to at the Lennox Highway Department suggested a possibility that we'd create a walkway across and then maybe, I don't know, through eminent domain or whatever you'd have to do. If you'd had to extend beyond the highway right away, you'd have to take some property, but you'd have maybe an easier path construction wise.
Right.
I don't know, the topography there, but there's a bird sanctuary on the inside of that curve, which will require some types of pilings or piers or poles or something to make a proper wooden walkway. At best would look like a dock or a pier along the ocean. It would have to be maintained. At one point, I measured the width of the broom at the town to try to figure out how to do it. I have contacted Techno Metal Posts, who would typically be the ones that would put the proper anchors in. They're willing to do something, but we need engineering first before they could offer us a price. There's also a pyramid pier that's pretty interesting. That's a concrete block that they'll do engineering for whatever structure you would need. It's like this reverse pyramid where you drive posts in, something that can actually be done on site without any wetlands concerns. So there are ways of doing it. We could even get a rotary driver, spiral driver on one of our excavators to actually reach over and put these pier placements where they need to be. All that's beyond the scope of what I'm interested in doing. I'm glad to help any way I can here. But we need to have someone that would take our,
So let's start with the engineering. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
And that's
The one issue,
sure, you would know.
is if we do the wood and other stuff is winter maintenance.
And I totally agree. That's why I say I measured the broom to see it's like 6 feet wide.
But
Somebody
then
has
it's
to
gotta be
get,
strong enough to hold equipment and, you know.
that's right. There's a lot to it. An engineer has to be consulted on this.
Wouldn't it be wiser to, like on the area on 7, to widen the road?
So the road,
Put a bike
there's an
lane.
easement, it's 100 foot wide, so you go to the middle, you measure 50 feet and 50 feet, which is why I like to have people walking with me if we do this. And you go, well, that's still not enough maybe, or I'm still scared, or, you know, I mean, there's a fear factor involved that I'd like to have someone present. Beyond an
No
engineer.
engineering about it.
Right.
Even if you have to encroach in some of the land of 5 or 10 feet, you know, we go through that channel. That way there you can plow it.
Yeah.
Keep it clean all winter.
I'd love to see something on the other side of the guardrail that would do what you're talking about and maybe have it far enough away that the snow wouldn't be thrown up there.
They still gotta clean the snow off.
It's gonna have to go up before the school buses come and back and forth.
But I think this,
a lot of work.
figuring this stuff out seems like it's the realm of an engineering firm.
Yes.
And Michael, do you have a sense of what the cost of getting an engineering firm to evaluate the options and make a presentation to us? Basically get it to the point where we could bid it.
I can have that for the next meeting. Probably step one would be the feasibility, just to come up with some conceptual designs similar to what you did with the Main Street. Come up with the conceptual designs, then figure out which of those conceptual designs is the best next route to take.
Right.
And then you move toward construction, the rest. We can look at complete streets. There was an application in 2019 with preliminary costs estimates, and it didn't go the full route, but it was originally started. And it's something, we do have a complete street policy, so pedestrian walkways are part of that. And that's up to $500,000 that we could qualify for that. And then what I'll do is also reach out to see if there's a design element to that and whether we can possibly go after grant funding for a design element first and then construction element.
And you think we can have this for the next meeting?
I can at least have the information on whether or not we can go after a complete street for design or whether or not what a rough cost would be to at least do the conceptual part.
Okay.
I could have that for the next meeting and then we can begin the process of moving ahead. Like I said, it would probably take them out here, take a look, come up with those conceptual designs and then hone in on a specific design and then move forward with that.
I'm 100% behind this from the start, just that we never.
It never got done.
It
never got done.
I'll make a motion that we give Mike the authority to.
Oh, we got some questions. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you come up and kind of join us? Because people can't hear you from the middle or the back. Hi, just give your name and yeah, say what you want to say.
Hi, I'm Johanna Linsky. I'm a resident of Pinewoods for 2 years now. That's my son Andrick, who's 5.5.
Hey.
Very happy to be here. Yeah, so I just wanted to chime in on this topic. I would love to come back and talk about another topic, which is our driveway situation, but that's for another day.
I told you the other day. Yes.
Another day.
Actually, we can address that quickly, but when you're done.
Yeah. An update would be great. Yeah. But as far as the walkway goes, yeah, everything that you mentioned, it's a scary route. Pulling out of there is extremely scary because people go super fast. And a lot of times I've noticed, especially this summer, there's a lot of high weeds on the left-hand side behind the guardrail that don't get maintained. So it's like you have to really pull out far to see the traffic, oncoming traffic. So that's kind of very frightening. And I would definitely never consider riding my bike with my son, who just learned how to ride a bike this summer. And he's been asking me if we could go for a ride to the library because we go to the library quite a bit. And he would like to ride his bike into town. And I just say, I'm sorry, but it's just not a safe bike ride. But I do like this idea of having an alternative route behind Pinewoods. That whole area is an area explored with my son because I'm a naturalist. I'm actually a UMass trained horticulturist, and I own a gardening company myself. So nature is important to me. That's one of the reasons why I chose to live at Pinewoods. And at the present moment, that's probably one of the most positive things of living there, but is having access to that area. I do like the idea of having the walkway back there. I just wanted to make sure you guys take into account a couple of considerations. One is that it's going to be that we'll be able to have bicycles on it. So whatever kind of surface you choose for that, obviously you want to make sure that it's, easy to maintain, like somebody said, with a plow, but also for bicycles and wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs, because I actually started a tenant association at Pinewoods specifically to deal with the multiple issues, particularly with maintenance and the way Construct manages the property. And one of the people in the tenant association is a disabled gentleman who's had quite a lot of issues, mobility issues, living there with the fact that it isn't maintained properly. But he specifically I wanted to get him to come with me tonight, but he wasn't feeling well. But he did say that I could speak on his behalf as being part of the tenant association. And what he wanted people to know is that he's actually considering leaving the property because of the fact that there is no safe walkway from Pinewoods to town, because he actually has an electric scooter that he'll drive into town at his own, peril. And he talks about it a lot because it's something that he does, whenever the weather is permitting. But he would like to do that in the wintertime just to get out of the house, because otherwise he's homebound in the wintertime. And it just seems to me, with all the issues that have been raised with trying to put in extra space on the road, 102, it seems like there's more issues with that idea than perhaps building, a walkway in the back area there.
Yeah.
And as far as design goes, I would hope that, maybe a landscape architect could, there could be some, you guys can make it open to landscape architects for a project. Because I think as far as design goes, they have, experience with that sort of thing, these type of municipal projects where they take into consideration the surrounding area, the community that's going to be using that walkway, and also the engineering side of things. I think that they could be very helpful in doing that. And perhaps there's, you can access even more state grants, state funding for something like that. If you team up with the right landscape architect who might have access to resources or have worked on similar projects in the past. So that's just another thing I'd like to, just suggest, being in that, in the sort of realm of, landscape design myself. I know that landscape architects can be very helpful in that, in this sort of project. So making it rideable for bikes, making it, feasible for disabled people. And I would personally recommend the nature walk, that solution versus, expanding the
More sidewalk, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Will you write down your name and number? And that way I'm going to call June Wolf tomorrow because we funded $150,000 for parking improvements, and last year was too wet. It was my understanding they were starting at midsummer, and yet I've also heard that they haven't quite yet.
Yeah, so I actually was just reviewing that email that I got from Kathy Wiggins, who's the property manager, it was actually on May 25th of this year that we got an email saying that the driveway was going to be begun. They were going to start on the driveway in July. Of course, that hasn't happened yet. And in fact, a week ago or less than a week ago, I emailed Jamie here asking for an update on the driveway. And I'm sure she's been very busy this week, but I haven't heard back. And I'm very curious as to what the issues are. Last I heard, there was a conservation concern. And the conservation board was getting consulted, or June was asking Jamie for information on the conservation board because maybe there was some issue with that. I'm not sure, but I have to say, I mean, I could go into a pretty long rant about this. In the 2 years that I've had this tenant association, I've had several members talk about how they've had to spend hundreds up to $800 for car repairs for the size of these craters that are driveway potholes. I actually started an email chain with Smitty Pignatelli, June Wolf, Kathy Wiggins. I think I had Tricia, the House rep.
The point I was going to make is that we'll make sure we get information back to you and Kathy and June in terms of like if there's any holdups. I don't believe, Jamie, are there Conservation Commission issues with this? It's just a repair, right?
June came to the conservation meeting in June, I believe. And
I saw that on the tape, right? So now, Michael, in the event that, we had an excuse last year, and if we continue to get an excuse, does the town have the capacity if we elected to redirect, if the CPA elected to redirect the money to highway, could highway repair that with that money? If we took the money back, frankly, why not?
Private property through the CPC.
I thought the town owned the property and they owned the building. No?
No.
That's why they go through CPC. And CPC can issue money to private property use, but.
Okay.
Yeah. The town has put up
Yesterday,
$150,000.
I was surprised.
We'll figure it out.
In addition to the money that they've already received from the town, from my understanding.
Well, we don't give them the money until they do the work. So they don't actually have the money in the bank.
Oh, okay. Well, I see. Well, in addition to that, they did do 2 rent hikes in the last 5 years from what I understand.
Right.
I've been there.
We kind of have to stay at the agenda though.
Okay,
But if you want to come in and talk about Pinewoods, I can put Pinewoods on the agenda.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
Thank you.
Can I make an offer really quickly? Yeah. So I did drive through there today with my pickup truck and I about fell into this.
Yeah, that's a big one.
You've got the picture.
I drove in there over the weekend.
I would make an offer that Stockbridge Gas Company would come up, 3 guys in my dump truck, put some stabilization fabric down and put some, 3/4 stone, Chucky, would you put in there or what? Just as a temporary repair, I'll offer that for free.
Well, it's not our property, it turns out. So you got to talk to construction.
All right. If you could get permission for me to be in the common area of your condominium association, I would for free fill your hole.
I don't know if they'll give me permission to do anything. I think you might be better off with Jamie.
Close to the phone call from me to fix, all right?
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Jim Belfance has his hand up.
Jim, 1 second. Jim, first of all, Jim, thanks for your help on all this.
Can't hear him.
You're muted, Jim. There
Are
you
you
go.
okay now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to support that lady who was talking about that. As I know the finance committee, during those meetings, I raised that question. This has been an ongoing problem for years. And it was supposed to be taken care of, as you said. Last year it was too wet. Then it was said that they would have it done this year. It is now September. And there is really, I'm sorry, there's no excuse for whomever was supposed to get that done, not getting it done. And I hope that will not just sit on somebody's desk again. Let's get active on that and get it done the same way we need to do the sidewalk. Thank you.
You got it, Jim. Thanks. I'm planning on calling Jim myself tomorrow. Okay. Yes, John. Thanks, Marty.
I'll stay.
It strikes me that, I don't know how many years ago, this was on the town warrant.
Yeah.
And there were dollars that were allocated to do the walkway from Pinewoods.
The design, wasn't it?
No.
There was money CPC for Laurel Hill to do the design, the one you pointed out. There was a town meeting vote. We looked at it. It had no money. It just said that the town would look into providing.
I think it was raise and appropriate the funds to do the walkway. It was a commitment.
Money actually raised and appropriate.
But it sort of doesn't matter. To me, we have a Democratic Republican form of government. The power is with the people, the voters. The voters said we're going to do this. The administration should carry it out.
So,
amen.
This is where we're at. So let's.
Without a
So
that's why we're all here doing it.
thank you. So We're voting tonight to allow Mike to look into looking for,
Start
Well,
of a
this is where we need
feasibility.
to,
We need-
this is gonna get a little
We
more
need a-
complicated.
it's gonna be complicated, but we need,
Because the way I was thinking it, there's a couple engineering firms I could tack right on as far as creating a sidewalk walkway with complete streets. But if you're looking to go through the wetlands,
but we need to do
through
that.
the other
We
one,
need to do the sidewalk.
Wait.
we need to do the evaluation.
That's gotta be one part.
Laurel Hill already did the one study, right?
Well, no, they only did a study that I checked, actually, I got the phase one study. It only goes from 183 to the overlook on the other side of the Housatonic River. It doesn't even go to our side. Now, these guys proposed one 10 or 20 feet off the road, or like basically a bike path and walkway. So, I think for now, because the phase two isn't at all designed at Laurel Hill, we should focus on Nick and Jim's idea around 10 or 20 feet off through the bird sanctuary to do some kind of like gravel or hard packed walkway that is amenable to obviously being plowed in the winter.
ADA compliant, there's
ADA compliant, whatever that may be.
a whole list of things, so,
But I
right.
would also recommend going with the street grant with the sidewalk on the side of the road where we have comparisons.
Yeah, no, I think we need an engineer to evaluate all
On
these.
both of those.
I think we basically need
Okay,
someone who
I'll-
can vision this out, and sort of like we did with you guys did with the
Intersection.
Main Street, that we just sort of see the plus and minus and costs of doing it. But I don't want to wait for grants to design. I think we should take ARPA money. We made the commitment, and we should get started on the engineering.
I've also talked to Hugh Page because I said, this is going to end up in your lap for maintenance. Please be in the forefront of design as opposed to having handed to you and then you figure out how to maintain it.
Yeah.
And he was on board with that too.
A lot of us are
So is-
state too,
One more
so
thing,
Is it,
we're on state road too, so.
with regard to the driveway in Pinewoods, keep in mind that the asphalt plant's closed down on November 1st.
No, that's out of our hands.
yeah.
No, that's out of your hands, but I mean, maybe you can get somebody to do something about it.
Is there any
No, we need to
money?
just find out where it's in.
DOT or like the BRNC
Well, there is, but it depends
or
on,
we have to get the feasibility study?
well, no, we could possibly do design also.
Okay.
So,
Michael's going to come up with some ideas for the next meeting. It's going on the agenda at the next meeting. Bring back, what's his name, Matt? No, yeah, son.
My son is Andre.
Oh, Andre.
Andre, yeah.
All right, next meeting, we're going to have it on the agenda again. Kids are always welcome at this meeting. All right, is that okay with you if we at least do a follow-up talk in 2 weeks?
yeah, there's no reason why I can't at least get a preliminary idea of what it would take.
Okay.
Thank you, Patrick. I
You got
appreciate
it. All right, anything else related to Pinewoods? Motion to adjourn? That was a joke. Okay. See, none of the jokes are funny tonight.
I second it.
Yeah.
Motion adjourned, I second it.
No, we're not doing that to these people. People are going to get a chance to have their say. All right, Michael, why don't we, the last thing we're going to do tonight is, a few weeks ago, Michael and I talked about doing a review, a top-down review of what the various options are for exemptions. Explain everything from the elderly and disabled charitable gift fund to the RT to these mean tested RTs. We're going to do a quick run through. It's about 20 slides, and then we're going to open it up to a discussion. I only want to have a few rules. Everybody gets to say whatever they want to say. We're going to have order though, and folks are going to be recognized generally in the order that Michael notices them because I don't pay attention to the screen. But I don't want to get into back and forth. I'd like if folks want to speak to limit it to one opportunity to speak because there's a lot of people on the call. And I also would like to have the chat turned up. If we're going to have this conversation as a town, I'd like to have it in real time with real words and not have side, discussions going on that we can't track because we can't see the comments on the screen here. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael Canales, and he's going to run through about 20 slides, which document the various options. I think they'll take about 15 minutes. He's going to share his screen.
Yes, that's what I was going to right
And
now.
at the end, we're having pizza.
All right. So I was asked, and I worked with Michael Blay from the assessor's office, and we wanted to look at, sorry, there we go. we wanted to look at all the exemptions that are available in the town. So we began by looking at what does the town currently have available for exemptions that people could possibly qualify for. And the first one, I just gotta move the piece online. There we go.
I don't need to go through every bullet, just summarize what each of them.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So surviving spouse, minor children, deceased parents, and elderly, clause 17E. The town has already acted as best it can for this exemption. It's a $175 exemption unless you include the E section, which allows you to adjust by COLA, which the town did years ago, which has allowed this exemption to become an exemption that is now $368.
And how many people take care of them, take advantage of them?
I didn't ask that one specifically because it wasn't
Handful though, right? Okay.
as relevant. I did look at some of the other ones, though. You have to reach age 70, own the property at least 5 years, have to provide a birth and/or death certificate and, other financial documents. There's assets determination and the rest that are included in this. So that's one of the ones that is offered, and people that qualify do take advantage of it.
This is 17E?
This is 17E.
Yeah, okay, so we had 10 this year. It's on your one of your next slides.
I do have it as one of the later slides, what we have. Veterans and with service-connected disabilities, clause 22. I didn't list out all, there's a number of clause 22s. These go from anywhere where the minimum is $400 up to a full exemption, no taxes have to be paid at all. The main thing with that is that you have to have proof, certificate of proof from the Veterans Administration. So, and it can be anywhere from up to a 10% service disability to 100% service disability.
And that's 9. That number was 9 in fiscal 22.
Blind exemption, clause 37A, is if you have a blind, legally declared blind, then you could qualify for up to $500. These are the pretty straightforward ones, the first three. They're pretty much set in stone. They're pretty much universal across most communities. The blind exemption is set at a dollar amount. That one does not change. And like I said, the veterans all depends on your level of disability.
And we have 2 in the blind exemption.
Then we get to where we begin discussing the different ones that allow seniors to get their taxes reduced. And what we have is what's called clause 41D. Now 41D, so I'll go into this one a little more in depth. So you have to be 70 on their birthday. This is what we currently have. Own the property as your primary domicile on July 1st. Been domiciled in the state of Massachusetts for the preceding 10 years. And own and occupied a property in the Commonwealth for 5 years. Provide a birth certificate and financial documentation. Now, this is where we have a very much a limitation on who can qualify. We do have with the 41D allows this exemption to increase annually by COLA. And what it is it has brought the gross income for a single up to $23,756. You can get a Social Security deduction, which would increase with Social Security that you could earn $28,957 to qualify. If married, it's a gross income of $27,413, and with the Social Security deduction, if you're taking Social Security, if you add that deduction back in, you could have up to $36,759 in income. You cannot have assets cannot exceed $51,172, and if married, $54,826. This includes pretty much your savings, your stocks, your bonds, everything except for your real estate. Real estate is not included in your assets. And the exemption amount for, if you qualify for all that, is $500.
And we had 4 people?
4 people last year. Yep. We also have the Citizens Work Off Abatement Program, which we need to get started back up again. And this is for applicants that are 60 years older. There's no restriction on income or assets, and they can earn up to $600, which would be 40 hours based at minimum wage of $15 an hour. There is a clause there that technically you can apply the federal minimum wage to it. I don't think that's fair. I've never thought it was fair. And the other communities I've worked in, we've always.
Does it have to be in the office or could that be gardening?
That could be a range of jobs. You come up with the jobs and then you put the job out there.
Okay.
And people can apply for it and.
Can you?
Is that something through the senior center?
No, it's managed by the town hall. I believe.
Town hall.
Yeah. But I just want to throw out there that if anybody, is looking to be part of a work-off program, it doesn't have to be like copying and sitting at a desk at town hall. It could be like something like doing the gardening. Let me finish.
No, because you don't put out a call for volunteers. We put out the positions that are available.
Well, maybe if I finish my sentence, I was going to suggest if you have any creative ideas of how you would like to participate in this, get them to us. We'll bring it to the board and then we'll decide if that's something that we can offer. So just any sort of suggestions on this front that are creative, I would appreciate.
And this is one that we can also consider increasing in the future at town meeting.
Yes.
So this is one that we can increase this dollar amount to make it, and we can go up to $1,500. So then there's the tax deferral program. Every community must offer a tax deferral program. And the baseline is 41A if you don't vote anything else in. 41A says that you have to be 65 years and older. You can only have a maximum household income, whether single or married, of $20,000. There's no restriction on assets. All or portion of the real estate taxes can be deferred at a base 8% interest rate. And it's considered a lien on the property that must be paid to the town upon the death or sale of the property. And an applicant may qualify for other exemptions under this. But the big one here is obviously that income maximum requirement.
We can change that,
We
correct?
can change that. I'm going to get into that in a little more.
But it's not on 41A, we can change it. Right.
Aid for the elderly and disability. This is a town-offered program that you have to be over 60 years of age. The income limits are $24,980 for one, $33,820 for two, or $42,600 for three. The asset limit is $48,000, excluding the value of their domicile. Applicants must be owned. A resident must be a full-time resident of Stockbridge. The first half of the property tax must be paid in full to be eligible, and it's an exemption up to $1,000. So that is our own internal.
Is that the one that's listed on our tax bills where it's the charitable, where people can donate to the fund?
Yes.
Okay. And we had, we know that number too. We had what, we had a handful of people who actually applied for that last year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We've had some that apply for that. Class 18A, these are a couple other deferrals. One is, this is the temporary hardship deferral. This can defer up, this can be to any age. Typically, a lot of times you find this, especially if there's a warfare or combat action where somebody might be in the active military, and you can defer the taxes on a property for up to 3 consecutive years. And then there's the base clause 18 hardship that if they cannot, for any reason, age, infirmary, poverty, apply for this exemption. These all pretty much go back to what was in the original hardship one, deferral. So
age, infirmity, and poverty, all three you have to qualify
age, infirmity, and poverty may apply.
It's not any one of the three. It's all three.
Yep. So these are the base, these are all the ones that we currently offer. So then the question becomes, and here's the ones that we have, as Patrick was noting, 10 surviving spouse, 9 veterans, 2 blind, and 4 elderly exemptions. So what are the possible changes just for the current ones that we currently offer? So the thing about our 41D, and this is just a relisting of it, as you can see, some of the things that are age, and then it's also the exemption amount of $500. So we could take 41D and we can reduce the age from 70 down to 65. This would be a town meeting vote. You can also increase the exemption from $500 to $1,000. And this is just a town meeting vote. Take both of these actions, and this would change the amounts and possibly allow more people to qualify by reducing the age. The other one is the tax deferral program. The tax deferral program, biggest limitation is the income, maximum of $20,000 for a household. Many communities have changed this number, and you can change it up to the circuit breaker requirement. You could take the interest rate and reduce it to 1%. And you can take the income limit of 20,000, increase it to the circuit breaker single person limit, which as of right now is $62,000. This would definitely make the tax deferral program much more available to people. It still places a lien on the property, and it would, unless we saw a ton of people doing it, more likely would be able to cover through the over. But it would definitely open up the potential for people to use this compared to right now, where the income limit of $20,000 for the entire household is very limited. So those are two that we could just simple, go to town meeting, could have a vote. You don't have to go from 8 to 1. You can go somewhere in the middle. You can go from the income limit. You don't have to go all the way up to the circuit breaker. You can put it somewhere in the middle, or you can just attach it to the circuit breaker, and then the circuit breaker adjusts annually. The state sets the circuit breaker limits, and then we wouldn't have to touch it again. You just let it ride with the circuit breaker limit.
Okay. Before we get on to the more controversial ones, I wanted to get feedback from folks on these less controversial ones. Is that okay with you guys?
Well, there is a piece coming up,
41 and a half. Okay, all right, let's do that one first.
Might be worth.
Can you?
So what are our other options? One that's come forward and been discussed is a residential exemption. So all the ones we've been discussing so far have been under what's called Chapter 59, Section 5, which are all controlled by the Board of Assessors. This is the one that is under the Board of Selectmen. I actually believe they misnamed this because by calling it a residential exemption, people think it's like the other exemptions, but it's not. It should have been named a residential shift because that's actually what it is. It's a shift in the tax rate. So similar to a CIP shift, which is the other one the board controls, which is a commercial, industrial, and open space shift where the board could shift more onto those. But you have to have a large commercial or industrial base. The place that uses one of those is like Florida Mountain, where they have Bear Swamp, which pretty much by shifting it over almost reduces the residential to nothing. But that's just the way it is. Here, the one that's been brought up is a residential exemption because specifically we do have a large second homeowner population. This was enacted in 1979. It shifts the burden of taxes on the residential class from owners of moderate value property to owners of vacation homes, higher value homes, residential properties not occupied by the owner, including apartments and vacant land. So this is a definition taken right from the DOR Division of Local Services guides. How does it work? Communities may authorize a residential exemption of one class residential property that are principal residents of taxpayers. The exemption cannot exceed 35%. And by adopting this, it increases the residential tax rate. And it creates a shift within the class that reduces the taxes paid by homeowners with moderate value properties. These taxes are then paid by owners of rental properties, vacation homes, and higher value homes. Once again, taken directly from the guidelines that DOR puts out. How would this impact Stockbridge? If we look at fiscal year 22 and we take a look at, this was just a general look at it by myself and Mike Clay. Patrick also supplied some information and we looked at it and we said, okay, based on the assessments, based on the tax rate in fiscal year 22, we looked at a single family residential home would be valued at, we rounded it off. It's not 600,000. We rounded it off to 600,000 because this is only the single family value homes. It doesn't take in all the class one. If we were to do a 35% shift, what would happen to the tax rate? So what would happen is you'd have $210,000 of valuation taken off of all residential homes. This would, then the tax rate would be increased over $10. This increase in the tax rate would push up the charges on non-residential homes, and residents would, since they would receive a $210,000 reduction in their assessed value, would see the following adjustments to the taxes. So like I said, we use just rounded numbers and everything else so that it was easy for people to look at in order to see what would happen. So on a $300,000 home, a person would see their taxes reduced by $1,800, while a $300,000 home by a non-resident would go up $348. And if you go all the way to the end at 2 million, the taxes on a $2 million home for a resident would only go up 106, but a $2 million home for a non-resident would go up 2,320. And you can see the various levels in between that would affect this change. This one is the one that is controlled by the Board of Selectmen at their annual tax classification hearing. The other one is, so this gets a little tricky when you get into these senior means tested residential exemption because there's no DOR guidelines, there's nothing else. These were home rule petitions by communities to create their own residential exemption.
Explain what home rule is.
So home rule is when you petition the legislation to create your own version of something. And in this case, they wanted to put in the residential exemption, but they wanted to have it means tested. 5 communities that we know of, based on the Lincoln study, did this. It could be more, but the only way we would know if there's more is you'd have to go through every community because there is no listing of home rules. They're just individual. Well, DOR keeps a list of all the ones that they authorize people to do. Typically, what we saw by looking at the other communities is that it set the age at 65 and older, most communities, and a co-owner must be 60. Have an owner occupancy of 10 years. Most of the communities use the circuit breaker, which sets the income at 62 for a single, 78 for a head of household, and 93 for a married couple. And the annual homeowner's residence, the circuit breaker cannot exceed $884,000 for them to qualify for the exemption. Applicants must not have excessive assessments as determined by the Board of Assessors because each community did different things and it was a little confusing as to what each one did. And they must show that they have claimed a mass circuit breaker tax credit. The exemption amounts varied. So this is actually directly from the town of Lincoln study, where they looked at the different ones. And you can see how there were different benefits, different calculations, and different amounts that they came up, and even ways that they reconciled it, such as through residential reallocation, who funds it, through the municipal budget in Wayland. So communities took different approaches at these. These would be, if we were trying to do something like this, would be looking at individual communities, look at what they've offered and try to match up what would work best for Stockbridge. It would have to be a town meeting vote to submit to the legislation, and then legislation would have to look at it. And then if they approved it, then we could have our own version of a means tested exemption. But when we were looking at this, we came across an interesting one, which is 41C1/2. Now, the interesting thing about this one is only 2 communities have ever enacted it, Ashland and Revere. And I've spoken to both communities about this. 41C1/2, when it originally came out, was, as stated, was not well written, and actually has been rewritten in 2017. So it's much clearer. And what this exemption does is it allows you, in the difference between 41D, it has something similar. You can reduce the age, so the age can be 65 to 70. It reduces the asset limit to nothing. And what it does is it allows you to set the single person income or household income to the circuit breaker single limit, which is the 62,000. You have to be an owner of the property. You have to be 10 years consecutive before the application domiciled in Mass. You have to qualify for the circuit breaker. There's no social security deductions. That's a difference from the other one, but it has such a larger income allowance that more than makes up to it. There's no estate limit. The exemption amount can be 5 to 20% of the residential value. So how does this work and why hasn't it been applied? So the exemption can go from anywhere from 5 to 10% for those homes that qualify. There's 2 reasons why a community wouldn't do this. One is if the value of your properties in a town don't have a high class 1 average assessed value, it's a lot, you could be in a community where the value of the single family home is only 250,000. Your exemption's gonna be somewhere around $300. Well, it's a lot easier for a community to just adopt 41C, which they can go right up to $1,000. So this really only would impact the community that would have a high single class 1 average value. In the case of Stockbridge in 2022, our average assessed value is $521,000. If we were to go to a 20% reduction under the 41C and a half, it would give the person a $977.88 exemption. The thing is that once you peg it to a percentage amount, you can change it at town meeting. The first year it goes into effect, it has to be by a vote of the town, so on the ballot. And then every year you can adjust the percentage by a vote of town meeting. If you put it at 20% and the assessed value and the tax rate goes up, the exemption amount will crawl up too over time. So it allows the exemption to grow as the community and the need wouldn't necessarily grow. In the case of Stockbridge, I think we fit within that, that this becomes an option because our values are high enough. It still has means testing. The nice thing is you still get the state reimbursement of $500 that you get on any 41 that the town has approved. But we only can go up to a maximum, we're capped at a maximum of 19. So only up to 19 people we get the first 500 back from the state. So this is one that when we came across, it's like this one could be considered for Stockbridge, because we have a high enough valuation that it makes the exemption. And then with the amount that we have going up to the circuit breaker of 62 would also make it much more eligible for people. So those are all of the exemptions. I also included in the packet that went to the selectmen that it's online that you can get all the guides to all the different 41s, all the different exemptions that we have. So there's a couple here that can be considered by the town, but this one also, like I said, would be a ballot. So all these would be town meeting involvement. 41C would involve a vote of the town at a ballot. And then the residential exemption, let's call it shift, is something that the board would take up at the tax classification hearing. So that's an overview of what the town has and what the potential options are that the community could look at.
So how many of these in combination can be, like you got the circuit breaker, what could be added to that? You do the circuit breaker, what other ones of these get attached to that to get more money off your taxes?
Each one is, so the 41,
As many as
has
apply.
its own, then you have the 22, the 37.
So as many as apply, is
This,
that what?
right, this would be as many apply, and because there's no asset limit, and there's a circuit breaker of 62, something like the 41C and a half could apply for quite a few more seniors. And right now it would be capped at a 977 based on FY22 numbers, if you went to the maximum 20%. It couldn't go into effect this year, that would have to go to a ballot and then town meeting, so. Chairman?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking. Do you guys have any other comments or questions that you have so far? Just the board?
Not at this point.
All right, well, I personally, in terms of taking a look at things to look at, I think that raising the senior work-off from 600 to 1,500 makes a lot of sense to me. I think the tax deferral is not as, I'm not sure a lot of folks, it feels a lot like a reverse mortgage to me, but I guess the interest rate's a little bit lower and we could adopt that and set that. I like the circuit breaker one. Michael, have you guys thought about what, is circuit breaker just a question of looking at people's tax returns? How would you implement?
Individually.
So anyone that you're using the circuit breaker, they would have to come in and show that they qualify for the circuit breaker.
But is that the circuit breaker specifically around income?
Income,
Tax returns.
right, that seniors can
Is
qualify
that every year or is that just the initial year you qualify?
every year.
Okay. And do you have any concerns around implementing that one?
No.
It's a state one.
For that matter, do you have any concerns around implementing the residential exemption?
Whatever the board decisions are, the staff will implement.
Okay, can you load the thing from Berkshire Natural Resources?
The one from Berkshire Regional Planning.
Or, I'm sorry, yeah, Berkshire Regional Planning.
You wanted.
Yeah. So Berkshire Regional Planning is coming out with a study in a few days that I got an advanced copy of from Mike Malloy. I want to review a few points on it. Maybe start at page 41. And this will only take a minute. So on page 41, they talk about actually, we can even skip that. Just jump right to page 15, please. So in a survey of Berkshire County second homeowners, there was a significant amount of data that the BRPC collected this summer, and they're about to release in the next few days. And I thought that what was especially instructive was, the first was, if you plan to keep your Berkshire property for the next 5 years, what are the most important things to you? 60.6% said environmental quality, 50.8% access to lakes and ponds, 61.2% said cultural activities. And I thought that reasonable taxes was 34%, so about 1 in 3. I thought it was interesting to observe that a lot of the things that we have going for us in Stockbridge made us very attractive, and I think that is a high priority to maintain. On page 60, they talk about age, and what I think is very interesting is that the average age of second homeowners is very similar to the average age here in Stockbridge. So by far, the vast majority were born in 1950 to 59. The second most was 25% in 1940 to 49, which I thought was interesting. I think the communities of second homeowners and primary residents have a lot in common there. The next one that I want to point out is one of the things I found interesting is about 20% of Berkshire County second homeowners do or plan to rent their homes on short-term rental sites. It was actually very low, and in Stockbridge it was even lower. And then the last one that we got into had to do with median income. And in this self-reported survey, the median income of second homeowners was approximately $250,000. I just point out that that's 4 times the median income of the full-time residents in Stockbridge. So at this point, I think we should open it up if there are comments that anyone has on these wide variety of options. I would love to hear them. I'm going to start with the people in the room and then go to the people on Zoom. So do we have any folks in the room who want to comment? Roxanne. Hello, Roxanne. I didn't see you there in the back.
Well, I would like to hear from each one of you how you feel about this option. The one thing that I noticed, Patrick, you seem to just dismiss the deferral. And I don't think it should really be dismissed. I think that there are some circumstances where that makes sense for people. For instance, if I get diagnosed with cancer, I have 2 years to live. Certainly would make sense to defer my taxes. So I think it shouldn't just be dismissed out of hand, and I'd like to hear from each one of you.
Well, I want to comment on that first. First of all, I'm not dismissing it. The Finance Committee said we already did it at the last meeting. Is that not true?
We did what the last?
The Finance Committee, they listed deferral, tax deferral as on the list of things that we already supported. I'm not dismissing it. I think there's a reason why we don't have any people in it.
Well, it is, I'm interested in all of your thoughts.
But you specifically.
On how you would want to modify these. It was mentioned with the deferral that you can go down to 1% from the 8% that it's currently at. The income threshold right now is only $20,000. And you can go up to the circuit breaker amount of $62,000. So I'd kind of like to hear your thoughts on each one of these and how they could be modified, or what would you consider modifying?
Right, I would rather wait to have all the feedback and then take a little time at the end for the three of us to hear all the feedback and then discuss them, but I do think that that's a reasonable request. Okay.
If I might, I think as an individual resident, 6 Larawal Crossroad, I can't speak for the Finance Committee. It's not we don't have an agenda. But I think it's very important for the entire Select Board to understand all of these options, all right? These are not things that can be dealt with superficially. They're very complex. I think that's number one. I think most important, you've outlined well, the 10 options that are available to a community, okay? However, with the options, what is the principal objective of the board relative to the town of Stockbridge? What are we trying to accomplish? And for whom? We need to answer that question. This is not a question that we need to answer tonight, but it needs to be debated and the options need to be put on the table. They need to be analyzed. There's a lot here, and this is not something that can be dealt with superficially or quickly.
Hey, Steve.
Steve Schatz, 5 North Church Street. Here as an individual, not as not as a member of the Finance Committee.
Like you, it's not a quorum. It's okay.
And just to be clear, Patrick, at the meeting that the Finance Committee had, there was no vote taken by the Finance Committee of any kind related to the residential tax exemption. So be clear about that.
I watched the meeting, Steve. No, I was commenting.
I was there.
No, it listed in the second thing that was listed, just to clarify, I wasn't criticizing, that the deferral option was an option that we have. I believe it's state law we already have, you know. And I understand the subtlety of that we can improve it through lowering the rate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that aside, I had put down a number of comments about the residential tax exemption, but I think it's probably not the best time to be doing it. I really appreciate the fact that you have brought into public all of the, the various options that are available that have been adopted over the years, somewhat willy-nilly in fashion, depending upon who was complaining at any given moment. Well, that's how legislation gets done. We know that. The problem with that is that it, excuse me, it doesn't represent good housing policy. And that's really, to me, is the issue here. Other communities, neighbors of ours, have adopted housing plans. They update their housing plans periodically, somewhere generally in the order of 5 to 10 years. They try to follow housing plans that have been approved and discussed at town meetings. They're not always successful in being able to do it, but it is a community-wide plan, much like, in fact, the strategic planning exercise that this town went through in 1996, which had a whole housing section in it. And it's unfortunately the last time that Stockbridge has ever adopted a unified housing plan. In fact, Pinewoods was built in part in response to that housing plan. So I think that a lot of this discussion is sort of the cart before the horse. We need to be looking at a plan. Number one, what are the problems? How do we identify them? And how do we develop strategies? Because that's what we're talking about here. Our strategies
which need a plan first, a plan and a delineation of the problem itself. It's sort of the way we're doing it, or suggested that it be done, is, forgive the expression, it's ass backwards. We need a housing plan, and it starts with the select board.
Which we funded, you know that, right?
Excuse me?
We funded the housing plan. We're doing it this year.
Have we adopted a housing plan at a town meeting?
No. Okay, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
3 meetings ago, we identified the need for this housing plan.
Good.
We created a affordable housing trust fund committee.
I know that. I'm aware of that.
Trust. We signed them the creation of the housing plan, and we allotted $50,000 in ARPA money to actually create this plan.
And
so great minds think alike.
So when will the housing plan be discussed and be done?
I'm thinking by town meeting. I mean, we have 3 consultants that we've identified with the state.
Okay. Yeah. So let's assume that we have a discussion.
Lost me there.
Yeah, I'm lost.
The housing.
There's not a plan yet.
There's at a town meeting in 9 months. Yes. The plan is to finish the housing plan within the next 9 months. It's typically a 6-month project according to.
Well, I would suggest that until the housing plan is done, until there's a community-wide discussion about what the needs are and what the strategies are, that we ought not to be tinkering with various statutes. It makes no sense to me. It's not the way that you would run any other kind of organization or business, by sort of throwing darts at the wall and hoping that you manage to hit the problem. Well, excuse me. So I just don't think it's just not a strategic way of dealing with a problem. Identify it first, then develop the strategies to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Ed Lane. I live at 3 Willard Hill.
Hi, Ed.
I want to second what Steve said about the process of putting together a plan. We've been talking about the numbers without talking about the problem. And so in that way, I'd like to second what Steve was saying. I also like to ask you, Patrick, on August 19th, you wrote a letter to the Eagle in which you talked about the residential tax exemption. And you talked about a number of infrastructure projects that the town should be considering. You recall that letter?
I did.
What it appeared to me in reading the letter was that you were looking to the second homeowners to increase their real estate taxes to fund those projects disproportionately to the homeowners, the permanent homeowners. Was that your intention? Because I thought the residential tax exemption discussion is all shifting of expenditure and has a net zero impact on the finances. But that's not the way I read your letter to the Eagle. Did I misread your letter to the Eagle?
No, I'm happy to address it though.
Okay.
Look, we're tackling a lot of not nice to have, must haves. We've got a situation where the voters approved the school, and if you look at the 500,000 that each town overwhelmingly approved on the design, it looks like that's going to happen. That's going to impact us $15 million. We've got I&I studies, basically broken sewer pipes.
I have no doubt that there's a number of challenges, financial challenges. I'm
going to now answer the question.
Sure.
Right? There's a number of financial challenges. The point I'm making is when it comes to I&I, when it comes to water, when it comes to school, we could easily be looking at $35 million. All right. You add to it some nice to haves like dredging, like expanded sidewalks that people have asked for around the Tanglewood area, like expanded sewer, expanded water. And you start to get to a situation where the point I was making was even as folks have have been struggling for years to pay taxes at the current mill rate. as we start to look at what the mill rate may look like with these investments, some necessary and some with a whole lot of consensus that we need, that becomes untenable for folks with a median income of 41,000 if they're single or 62,000 if they're married. Now, I'm simply pointing out to you that I think that when you compare the ability to pay, and the PC has put out the report, the second homeowners have a median income of $250,000 or so. It is the reason why this country in some areas has progressive taxation is because it's the only way government gets done. And my feeling is over the next 5 or 10 years, there will be tremendous pressures on this budget because of things like deferred maintenance and because of things we just got to fix, and that it is going to become untenable for a significant part of the full-time community to be able to afford that. And one way that you get everybody to be able to come along with a plan to invest in the infrastructure of the town is you shift, which is exactly what this is, you shift the burden to folks of more significant means. And I know a lot of folks feel that's on. I'm not suggesting that that is the plan to go. I'm not suggesting that's the only way we can get it done. I'm simply suggesting that I think that the conversation isn't just about housing. It's about like really taking a look at the next 5 or 10 years and seeing these budget busting items we're going to come up against and figuring out a way that we all as a town can support an effort to get them done.
Thank you.
I'll make a comment.
Please.
Because I don't agree with that, because we have a great finance committee. We have a great town administrator. We have our finances laid out well in advance. When one bond comes up, like Mike said, if the school bond comes in, we already voted to pay those other bonds off. So the school bond comes in, our tax rate is very minimal hit, correct?
As minimize it as best we can.
We have done projects right along. We've done the Lincoln Bridge. We've done the Haverhill Bridge. We've done the highway garage. We equipped the highway garage. We're doing the monuments. We're doing all these projects done in the last 2 or 3 years. And our tax rate went down because, well, the tax went up a little bit. Tax, we pay the same taxes because we have a great finance committee. We have a great town administrator, and we are planning ahead. So I don't think scaring people about all these projects coming up is the right way to go.
I don't think you put words in my mouth, Chuck. I'm not
You are.
scaring anybody.
Yeah, you're saying all these projects coming up so the people can't afford it. But if you plan it right, we do the way things been going in this town, and we budget it right, and we look in the future, Stockbridge is very financially stable, and I think we always will be.
If I may say, there are two issues here. One is the residential tax exemption, whether that's a good idea or not. It's a cost shifting, revenue shifting.
Doesn't raise any revenue.
It's not a revenue raiser.
Doesn't raise a penny.
It's not and so a second issue is the financing for all the projects that we think we're going to be confronted with in the future. Focusing on the taxes from non-residents as the source of funding for that is very myopic.
Right.
I mean, there are all kinds of things that we might be doing, of which that is only one. And that's really my point. And that's a completely different story. Okay.
Thanks. Next. Hi, John.
John Hart, Rattlesnake Mountain Road. The reason I came here tonight is essentially to tell you a true story about a woman who is no longer with us, unfortunately. Her name is Beatrice Jaskalian. She lived at 8 Rattlesnake Mountain Road, which right now is next to me at the time of the building. B became a friend over the years because of our properties being adjacent to each other. And one year, and I'm not particularly exact about which year it was, she was 86 years old, but it was when the town went through the reassessment process that they go through every 10 or however many years, with 5 years. And our telephone rang before we moved up to Rattlesnake, and it was B. And B, at 86, 7 years old, was crying, and she was very upset. And the reason she was upset was because she had gotten her tax bill, and because of the reassessment, the tax bill had gone up $800. Now, my point here is that these people who are on fixed incomes and Social Security and so forth, like B. Giskelian was, they set some money aside every month for payment of their property taxes and their real estate taxes, et cetera. And then not necessarily paying attention to the Commonwealth's every 5-year reassessment thing. They're not paying attention to that. They're just paying attention to making sure that that money is going into some account some places. So when they get to real estate taxes, bang, she can pay it. And she was totally upside down. I mean, I actually left the house and went over and sat with her and talked to her about whatever the alternatives are, where people, when you pay your taxes, you throw some extra dollars for seniors. I just want people to understand that, you know, this isn't just residential tax exemption. I mean, you know, I was going through the numbers that, I don't know, I've seen numbers on Patrick's Excel spreadsheet and numbers in Stockbridge updates and numbers up on the screen here. And, you know, I have a house that got bought across the street from me on Rattlesnake Mountain Road. You know, not to disparage deck houses, but, you know, deck houses are kind of, you know, a little dated and so forth and so on. But this place sold for $1.25 million. And what do you suppose that's going to do to my assessed value? And, you know, I joke about it because I can't believe what somebody wants to build down at 8 Hawthorne Road down here in Stockbridge Bowl. You know, for all intent and purposes, it's a Starship Enterprise. I mean, the guy's paying more to ship the stuff from California to Stockbridge than I paid for my entire house. What do you suppose that's going to do to assessed values? So we're not just talking about residential exemptions. We're talking about assessed values that are not going to stay where they are. I read somewhere, I think it was you, said 20 to 30%. I don't believe that's true. You know, when COVID hit metro areas, Boston, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, you know, the Great Escape occurred. And, you know, we sold our house on Manitowoc for $311,000. And I said, just wait a minute, just wait a couple of weeks. You know, we sell it for $400,000. Well, you know what? I was right. And we could have, but we didn't. But the fact of the matter is, these people who live in this town, who are stressed already about paying their real estate taxes and setting money aside every month when they get their Social Security check, are going to get screwed unless we do something to help them.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else? Georgia? Okay. Anybody on Zoom want to chime in?
Peter Strauss.
Hi, Peter.
You're muted, Peter.
No, I'm not anymore. Hi. So I want to say that I am totally I live at 9 Oak Street. I am a permanent resident, although I wasn't always. And I want to say that I totally agree with the proposition of shifting tax burdens to people with more significant means. And I understand that that includes me. And stories like John Hart's are really quite moving. One way of accomplishing it would be, I think, to move the interest rate on the tax deferral down, maybe not to 1%, maybe to 2%, 3%, and to move the asset limitation up to the circuit breaker. That will enable people who are below the mean income for Stockbridge to get some relief from their taxes. Relief, and it'll cost folks like me because you have to make up the difference. But at the moment, at 8% and $20,000, that's a useless program. If it's changed, it will cease to be a useless program.
Yeah.
As far as the real estate tax exemption is concerned, my principal concern is that there is a distortion in the way people talk about it. As if, well, higher valued homes are going to carry the burden. Mike, I don't know if you can put up that slide showing the, the way in which the real estate tax exemption would work.
I can.
Had before.
I mean, is it relevant? Can you just make your private? I don't care if he puts it up, sure.
Okay. Everybody who looks at it, the general point has been to look at the left-hand margin of impacts vertically. If you look horizontally on that same thing, what you see is that every second homeowner is paying $2,213 more than every first homeowner. And that includes the people who have assessed values of 2 million or 1,500,000 or 1 million, which is more or less me. And at that level, giving a $2,213 gift to the taxpayer is, well, it's a Republican gesture, if I can put it that way. Tax breaks for the rich. And it's totally unwarranted. There might be a way of dealing with it. The senior means residential tax exemption could be one way of dealing with it. A simple home rule proposition in which Stockbridge simply asked for the right to put a cap on the level of assessment at which you could get the RTE would help. But as it is, it's totally unfair because it lets the more wealthy principal residents of Stockbridge get a $2,213 tax break over the less wealthy non-residents. And there are some who get less, who have less than $250,000 mean income. And they are equally deserving of our concern. Thank you.
And Peter, I think the question of fairness is actually a good point. I mean, obviously, you know, as many have pointed out to me privately and publicly here and in prior sessions, someone with, I think, what was your example, Steve? Someone with $10 million in assets in a $500,000 home would get an exemption just the same way as someone in need would. And the fundamental unfairness of that is easy to recognize. I think that the question we have, and I'm not advocating for one solution or another, is that with the residential exemption, the price of everyone who needs relief getting it is that there's unfairness built into the system. And the challenge with every means tested option is that it's either not promoted well enough, and I don't frankly believe that, there's some other limitation why, for whatever reason, people don't apply for them. We get a handful of applications a year. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know why that is. I simply know that it is a really awful trade-off between only a handful of people really getting relief and having a program where everyone who needs it gets it, but then a whole bunch of people end up getting it, don't need it, and that creates all this resentment in the community.
So there might be other ways around that.
Oh, you know, Peter, hold on a second. Just so you know, Chuck, you've done the same thing. You know, Chuck and possibly Jamie too. We've actually been in touch with other towns extensively. I think you talked to Barnstable, some folks there, or
talked to quite a few towns.
Yeah, I had the chance to talk to the guy that wrote that Lexington study that Michael referred to, and I will say that they did not adopt the residential exemption. They did, however, recommend, after 2 years in producing a 200-page study, that they do a means tested residential exemption in 2019. And the guy's on the select board. He's a former MIT economist. They're around the corner. And he's on the select board. I said, Joe, did you actually go and do the means test residential exemption? He goes, nah, it kind of killed the project. It was 3 years later. You know, I think that some of these ideas are good for home rule or whatever, if we get them through. I think that they're realistically kind of doing a home rule is unrealistic. Also, we pointed out they've had other home rule options. For example, in Lexington, they have a home rule petition for the last several years that they actually did put in front of the legislature to have a 2% sales tax that would be a tax on property sales. They were going to fund their affordable housing with it. The real estate lobby in the State House basically won't let it get to the floor. So that's
not bad, but how about an application process to get this RTE? And connected with that application process, the opportunity for folks like me to indicate that we were doing an application.
What do you mean application process? I don't understand.
Oh, you have to establish that you have your primary residence, that you were living in it so many days a year and so forth and so on. You don't get the RTE unless you can show those things. It shouldn't be automatic. It should be people need to come in to Mike Blay and show that they are residents in order to get it. And it may be that enough of us will be embarrassed about doing it because we're so rich. That the impact would go.
I get what you're saying. I think that the mechanics of actually running these programs have regulations attached to them. I think the voter list is a pretty good list of folks who qualify for that specific exemption. You can't vote in town unless you're a full-time resident. I'm not suggesting
making it automatic is making it unjust. And
it's not. You have to apply for it. There is paperwork. When I called out east and stuff, and I talked to them out there. First thing they said is hire at least 1 or 2 people in the assessor's office because you'll be overwhelmed with paperwork. The assessor's office will never be able to run because you have to apply. Legally, every year you have to apply, but I think they've been applying every 3 years. So yes, it isn't just automatic, you apply. Now, there's things in the gap here people aren't even considering with this is this does not, businesses are not in this, renters are not in this. So when you have your landlords going higher in taxes, they would have passed that along to the businesses, which is either have to maybe lay off employees, raise their prices. How many apartment renters are we putting in jeopardy? Pushing them out of apartments because the rent's going up when they can just barely meet the rents. These are side effects that are not being talked about, that are very serious. We may help 20 people on this, and we may hurt 50 people of their lifestyles. So we have options. I would take the tax deferral, put it to 1%, put it to 63,000. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing shameful about that. If you have your taxes at $3,000 a year and you do for 10 years, $30,000, it's a drop in the hat when you sell your house or your family takes it over, but you get to stay in your house.
Yeah.
All these other programs, they're there. We can change them to make them more profitable, for better for the people to stay in the house. We have the options that are hitting the target we want to hit. As a selectman, we represent everybody in town, not just our full-time residents. We put every taxpayer, everybody who lives in town, every non-taxpayer, every business owner, that's who we represent, and our decisions got to be made on the whole town. I treat everybody equal, second homeowners, first residential owners, anybody, business owners, you work in town, you're equally treated the way I make my decisions. I'm going to state right now that I am not really in favor of the residential tax exemption for many reasons. We have our other options. Maybe down the road when our gap gets really big, it won't have such an effect. We can look at it then. But we have our options to help people. We have never foreclosed on anybody without helping them. In the past, we had people come in who couldn't pay their taxes. We worked with them. We put them on payment plans. We have never took a house for taxes. The only, 98% tax revenue because the 2% are usually properties that are condemned, like the old Stockbridge Motors that aren't paying their taxes. This town will not let anybody lose a house over taxes. We always have ways. And to put the town through this would be I think, a disaster, a mistake. It would divide the town in multiple ways. And I don't think it would benefit. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
I had to say it because I want to put my interest. I did my homework. I called a lot of people. I talked to a lot of people. If you don't have any other options, then this may be it. And to say this is going to get young people in town, not even, you're kidding yourself. It's the prices of the houses, it's not our taxes. Like we said, we got to work on Housing Authority, we got to work on a planning board, and we got to change our zoning bylaws. If you want to get young people in town, they can't afford a 4-acre lot, they can't afford a 2-acre lot. 1-acre zoning's put in places that you can't build. So let's look at the whole picture. You want to get young people in town, let's get the planning board moving. Make it so we can have young people move in town in affordable cluster housing, whatever we need. And we're working on with the Housing Authority on some of that, but it's going to take a lot more than that to get young people back in town. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thanks, Chuck.
Add to that, Jane?
I agree with Chuck, and that I do think that the problems are bigger than just the, and the only thing we can vote on as select board is the RTE. I think it's divisive. I think it's crippling. I'm not for it. It's a shifting. And I do not want to be put in a position to say who can afford it and who can't. I don't want to make those kind of value judgments. I don't want to know what does modestly mean? What is that number? And also as Chuck said, we are not talking about that middle category of apartments or business. We have very little commerce. We have the Red Lion Inn and Michael's. We don't have enough income coming in. I am grateful for the part-time owners. They are here half-time. They paint their houses, they mow their lawns, they hire people. They of course, we always get 1 or 2 that are miserable, but every town gets
some of our residents are miserable.
Right, okay, but I digress. And I think the bigger problem, and I don't want to get on my soapbox, is like these $1 houses that are sprouting up around the lake, and that is what's going to upset the apple cart eventually, but not yet. But also we would have to hire, from my research, more people, more staff, which costs a lot of money. You have to pay pensions, retirements, insurance, and who is going to do the paperwork to decide who's here 6 months and 1 day? Who is going to do all that paperwork? That is a burden. And I think there's also a great way to, maybe we could, why can't we just get some kind of donation fund for taxes, and that pile of money can be used, and we can do it in a way that isn't shameful or embarrassing. And in Nantucket, they're doing this amazing thing, and they've just started. It's an affordable housing. So as each house that costs money, so as houses sell, 1% of that sale price goes into a fund, and that fund is used for a housing plan and to build either affordable housing or help people. Why can't we do something similar here? And we will have this affordable housing trust fund. Maybe we can work on something like that. But I am not for I think we should implement other things, but they are not in our purview, I don't believe. We can talk about them, but we don't make a decision on the things that go to town meeting. Okay, I get to talk.
So I think on that note.
I didn't.
Are we not done?
No. Okay, I am.
All right. I think on that note, then, I would like to just have a brief conversation on the priorities of these other ones, because we actually have to do the work to get them to town meeting. So I'm just going to suggest 5 more minutes. I really kind of want to end this conversation so that we don't have to go back to it. I think this conversation is done on the RTE, obviously. And there's a few takeaways I had. One, I do like the idea of trying to figure out how to expand the scope of the senior work-off and explore, which would be a town meeting vote, as I understand it, raising it from the 600 to 1,500. So if then nobody has a problem with that, I'd like to get some more information on that over the next month or two. I believe that's something we have to take to the May town meeting, so we don't run in a hurry. But thoughts?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, good.
And I think with maybe the finance committee discussing going to the percentage and the 1% interest in the 62,000 thing, I think that we could vote on that. We can even do some of this if you have.
I mean, if you guys, you could certainly help cost it out. Someone should do the cost analysis on what any of these things would be. The second one I would like to point out is of the 2 other options, the 41C and a half, whatever it was, I actually prefer that to the deferred, but we could do both. The thing about the deferred that worries me is I don't think it is as good an option for multi-generational families. I think a lot of folks would have a hard time encumbering their property in a way that the only way their children are going to be able to afford to live in this town is if they inherit the property. And so my preference would be, if we were going to look at anything as a second thing, if we want to look all through, we can. But if we're going to look at the second thing, it would be the 41 and a half or whatever. What was it, Michael? The
41C and a half.
41C and a
You
half.
could do them all.
Right.
Can't we do
the
them all?
deferral
Yes.
and the deferral is separate from.
Separate, first, separate. Everything else, all this other stuff we can do all
Correct.
together. So we can do everything. So, and it gives
And then people who.
people the option.
Look, and just to wrap this up, we learned we learned in this process that we just went through over the last few months. We learned we had a lot of options we didn't know about, and I think that's great. We learned what the community thinks about some of these options, and I think that's especially great. I think, frankly, that one of my biggest concerns during COVID was the lack of engagement at so many of these meetings. Look at this room. We got 20 people in it. We got 40 people on Zoom. We got a whole lot of people to tell me what idiotic idea I had. That's okay.
Not idiotic, it doesn't fit.
I'm being self-effacing, all right.
It doesn't fit here.
So just like keep it up, because this town is already easily well over 50% second homeowners. This town could easily be 2 to 1, 3 to 1 second homeowners in 20 years. We got to keep you guys involved. And I appreciate all the conversations we had this summer at the various communities. And I would just encourage you to keep coming to the meetings and keep participating in this process, because it really is vital for a town with these kind of demographics. Thank you. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I just wanted you to be aware, we've had 4 people who've had their hands up for a.
You didn't tell me. I don't look at, I can't see hands.
Because.
Oh, okay, good.
Interrupting.
All right, okay.
As we're talking.
Sorry, I apologize.
Just letting you know, you've had 4 people patiently waiting.
All right, who's next?
Hillary Friedman.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi, Patrick. Let me lower my hand. Okay. I wrote something down, so I would have things to say. Some of it's been said, but this should be, if my timing was right, 2 minutes. I live at 13 Lakeview Drive, and some questions and comments about the residential property tax exemption. I happen to believe data are important in making decisions. The initial reason given for Stockbridge to adopt the residential exemption was to help low-income homeowners. Thanks for the packet that was prepared. I have some questions. How many people, not percent, in Stockbridge are considered low income?
We don't know.
Of that number, how many own their own homes? it should be noted that the exemption, as Chuck said, is designed for people who own homes, not renters. The chart shows the existing property tax relief programs for residents and the number of people who were granted relief in the last 3 years. Additional data should include the number of people who applied. I assume, but I'm not sure, that people can apply for more than one relief program. If that's true, you have to be sure you're not double counting people. Is there a limit on the number of people who can be granted relief depending on the number of people who apply? In other words, were any people denied because Stockbridge for some reason couldn't afford it?
And what program are you talking about, Hillary?
The resident, any of those deferrals for low income people in Stockbridge. There were 10 of them.
Everybody that applied was approved.
Yeah, I mean, basically you got 10 or 11 people total in each of the programs who've applied and been approved in the past.
So people who applied were approved?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I understand that there are people who believe that there are people out there who are not applying because they're embarrassed, but in fact, I don't think we know that. And it's to some degree patronizing. The fact that this issue needs to be voted on annually means that there is uncertainty each year about the amount of property tax second homeowners would need to pay. It could be at the same rate as primary taxpayers. It could be anywhere between 10% and 35%. As a second homeowner, I, like everyone else, try to plan expenses and budget accordingly. It is outrageous that I would pay additional money so that full-time residents in more expensive houses than I have would get a break. Not to mention, there are full-time residents who themselves may have second homes in other states. A has recently been given for Stockbridge to adopt the tax exemption to help with needed infrastructure.
Hillary,
percentage of the tax paid full-time residents to second homeowners.
Okay.
It does not increase the amount of money the town receives from property tax.
Hillary, we just took that off the table, so I understand that, you're happy that we did, but we did. So I think if we
focus. Like me to stop talking. Okay, thank you, Patrick.
No, I just think.
Fascinating meeting on many levels.
Thank you. Anita Schwarmer had her hand up.
Anita.
Michael, it's Schwerner. Anita Schwerner.
I apologize.
Thank you. Wait, but now, did you just say you took residential tax exemption off the table? Because this is what I wanted to say. I don't look at it as for low income residents. I look at it as a way to preserve and possibly expand the sense of community, the number of full-time residents in Stockbridge.
Hey, Anita.
Yes, Patrick.
I think that the board seems to have made a decision that we're not going to consider the residential exemption this year. And to be fair to Hillary, let me just finish. To be fair to Hillary, just because everyone's getting tired, I can see it in everyone's eyes. I think that a debate over a program that is off the table at 9 o'clock at night is sort of, at this point, kind of, talking past the sale or whatever it's called. I think we should maybe at this point, if you want to, I just rather not beat a dead horse here. We made it.
I'm sorry you backed down on it. I am sorry, but
not backing down on anything. Two of my colleagues said what they want to do, and this is a board run by a democratic process, and they got every right to not support something that I thought was a good idea. This isn't backing down.
I thought it was still under discussion, but whatever you decide, obviously.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Dick and Janine Jaffe.
Hi, Dick. Hi, Janine.
You're muted. Can't hear you, you're muted.
Thank you. I just want to just very quickly give a message to the young lady who was at the meeting, at the beginning of the meeting with her 5-year-old son, Andrew. And maybe that's the real question, tonight. And that is, why should part-timers contribute to improving the pedestrian connectivity between Pinewoods and Church Street? It's not going to benefit us. But I think the answer is very simple. We're happy to support it through our taxes, as we always have, for one very simple reason. Andrew, you don't know us yet, but we're your neighbors. We love this town every bit as much as the full-timers do. And we're happy to pay our fair share. Mr. Chairman, I truly thank you, and the other board members, for your continuing service. I know that many times it is truly a totally unthanked for contribution, that you make, to the well-being of the community. You conducted the service, with decorum tonight, and it was a difficult subject, and we all appreciate it. And I just hope and pray that you never forget that we all love this town. And I also hope and pray that this will not be a dead horse tonight, but this is an issue that will never come back before the board or any other issues that would divide those of us that love the town, the part-timers and the full-timers. We're all one. But thank you again for conducting a meeting with such decorum tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And the last person that's had her hand up is Jane Carlin.
Hi, Jane. Jane, I love your idea, by the way. Are you going to explain it?
Oh, well, yes, and I really do promise I will send a proper 1 or 2-pager to the select board. I'm Jane Carlin. I live at 20 Housatonic Road in Stockbridge. I will say that my association with the town as a part-timer goes back 53 years when I was a lifeguard on the town beach, quite a few years and maybe a few pounds ago. And that subject even then was talked about between me, the part-timer lifeguard, and my lifeguard colleagues who were full-time residents of the town of Stockbridge. But again, I agree with really Dick Jaffe's comments. It was really a pleasure to listen to such a civil conversation of what is clearly a very difficult topic. One of the things I wanted to point out is that Zoom makes part-timers much more accessible to participate in town activities. And I would really encourage you to make sure that we know about meetings, to remind us to check the town website, and to think of ways in which we might be more actively involved in town committees, because Zoom would allow us to have a presence when we can't be in the community. Because I think you'll find that many people really do want to get involved in positive solutions and in trying to narrow down how we help different people with different needs. Bringing young people into the community to live or to work is a different set of problems and solutions than protecting elderly or multi-generational inheritance. And so I just think we need to be more nuanced, and I'm glad we're not taking a one-size-fits-all draconian measure. So on that, thank you so much for your service, and good night, everyone.
Thank you. Motion adjourned?
Okay.
Is there anyone else?
Second. You made a motion, I seconded it.
All in favor?
I have to say that.
Yeah.
All in favor?